Books and the press. Education for all meant that more and more people were reading for pleasure and demanding cheap forms of reading matter. The invention of steam-powered printing presses enabled publishers to print thousands of copies of books, papers, or magazines at the time, and new techniques meant that their books could be fully illustrated too. So, children's books. In early Victorian times, most people thought that children should only read the Bible. Educational books or stories with a moral to teach them right from wrong. All that changed in 1865 when Lewis Carroll published Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. It was written purely for entertainment, but was so popular that it started a whole new trend for children's books. Themes varied from exciting adventure stories set in different countries, such as Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island and Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book, to the nonsense rhymes of Edward Lear. Books for the masses. One of the most popular Victorian authors for children and other readers was Charles Dickens. Most of his novels were first published in monthly parts, with each part ending on a cliffhanger to make sure the readers came back for the next issue. He was also a talented public speaker who drew huge audiences of eager fans to his public readings, both at home and in America. The Victorians loved trashy stories just as much as people do today. Cheaply produced paperback booklets known as penny dreadfuls, including romance, adventures, mysteries, and detective stories, were particularly popular. They came in weekly parts that cost just a penny, so almost anyone could afford them, but they were looked down on because the writing wasn't very good and their subjects were often rather sensational. From the 1850s, the first public libraries were opened in Britain, so that even people who couldn't afford to buy books could borrow them to read. Libraries began to spring up everywhere, and by 1900 there were 295 of them and up and down the country. Read all about it. There had been newspapers in Britain since the late 18th century, but because paper was taxed, they were so expensive that not everyone could afford to buy them. When the tax was removed in 1855, papers began to circulate more widely and sales soared. A new type of printing press using rolls of paper instead of sheets also made public quicker and cheaper. As a result, many new publications were launched, including illustrated newspapers, women's magazines, supporting journals, and theatrical papers. Writing it out. Until the typewriter was invented in the late 1860s, Victorian authors wrote their work out by hand with a quill pen and a bottle of ink. And Dickens wrote all his books with a quill pen dipped in ink.